At first glance, Lexi Howard, one of the main characters on some level since Euphoria, doesn't seem to be that interesting, really. In the show, which boldly covers the issues of addiction, mental health, sexuality, toxic masculinity, just to name a few, through the lens of breathtaking cinematography and an extraordinary soundtrack, Lexi appears to be an extremely normal teenager. She's a meek, shy, and introverted high schooler who cares about her grades and stays away from other people's drama. Her character seems to be integral to the show's world, yet she doesn't get much screen time. Especially in season 1, we can spot her in many scenes, but she's not bringing much to the plot. She's just there. She doesn't even get the typical Euphoria-esque 10 minutes long cold opening, which is how the show usually introduces its main protagonists. Through Rue's somewhat reliable narration, we got to learn the backstories of Rue herself, Jules, Kat, Nate, Maddie, McKay, Cassie, fezco, and wow, even Nate's dad, Cal, but not Lexi's. For the most part of the 2 seasons, all we know about Lexi's life are some loose bits of information, yet despite that, Lexi became an absolute favorite character of so many viewers. But why? Why in Euphoria's world of psychedelic daisies, rhinestones, and sharp eyeliners, the most compelling character to watch is Maud Apatow's Lexi Howard? Is it because she's mysterious? Or is it because she's relatable? And why is her personality so dramatically different from her sisters? Let's find out. Who is Lexi Howard? When at the beginning of season 2, fezco says to Lexi,
"Yo, you Rue's friend, right?"
he mirrors what we, the viewers, really know about her at this point. She's Rue's childhood friend, Cassie's younger sister, and their parents are divorced. That's it. Although, I'm gonna be honest with you and admit that for the painfully long time, I thought that Lexi was the older sister, not Cassie. Yes, I do watch TV while being on my phone, and so do you, so don't count for me. But hear me out. Lexi, despite being the younger sister, is the more mature and responsible one. We can see her constantly worry about Cassie. Instead of having fun at the New Year's Eve party, Lexi keeps searching for her sister because earlier they had a fight and Cassie got out of the car in the middle of the road. Lexi also keeps covering up for her and offers her emotional support whenever she can, even after their dad's accident. Even when her sister pushes her away, she still cares. And in general, it really seems like Lexi is the one who has her life under control while she's witnessing everyone trying to navigate their chaotic lives. Moreover, it is very noticeable that Lexi is a type of loner, someone who prefers to have a small circle of friends and searches for deeper relations with others. Even when she attends parties, she usually ends up just hanging out with Rue, and when Rue abandons her for Jules, well, Lexi just stays alone. To me, Lexi is that kind of introverted girl who most likely won't approach you first, but if you talk to her, ask her questions, and make her feel comfortable, she will eventually open up and reveal her intelligence and funny personality. But for the most part of the show, Lexi appeared to be just our normal, unbothered queen. However, little did we know that Lexi wasn't just witnessing everyone's drama, but she was experiencing it very deeply. Why is Lexi the way she is? In the last 2 episodes of the 2nd season, Lexi finally got to tell her story through a school play she wrote and directed, and this is when we got the bigger picture. Cassie and Lexi come from a type of family which is known in psychology as a dysfunctional family. In the simplest terms, a dysfunctional family can be defined as one that does not fulfill its basic functions. The parents aren't fulfilling their parental duties like providing care, safety, and/or emotional support to their children due to their absence or substance abuse, and children, well, they just can't be children, and instead they have to adapt specific roles in order to support the family's dynamics. Suze, Lexi and Cassie's mom, in almost all of her scenes sips a glass of wine and in fact can drink to the point of embarrassing herself in front of her daughters. And Gus, their dad, firstly divorces their mom and later becomes a drug addict. Both Howard sisters grew up in a deeply unstable environment with their parents constantly fighting and making public scenes. And because of all that trauma, it seems that Lexi took a role which is known as a caretaker or family hero, which is often described as a child who is 9 going on 40. Kids like this become very responsible, self-sufficient, and mature. This is exactly why Lexi offers emotional support to so many people around her, even to the adults, like to Rue's mom when Rue, let's not forget, Lexi's best friend, overdosed, which must have been an extremely traumatic situation to Lexi herself. Yet she puts others' needs before her own.
Are you okay? Are you okay? How are you feeling?
I feel like your whole life you've been forced to take care of everyone.
And maybe this is partially why Lexi was drawn to Fezco in the first place, because he also adopted the role of caretaker in his family. Obviously, Fezco is on a different spectrum of this role, as he needs to actually provide for him and his brother. But perhaps the reason why Lexi and Fez complement each other and they genuinely seem to be soulmates is because together they can just be normal teenagers. For once, Lexi doesn't need to be anyone's emotional support, and Fez can forget for a second that he runs a family business. Yeah, that kind of business. Also, we ship Fexy. Lexi grew up being largely overshadowed by her older sister's beauty and popularity. At first, she idolized Cassie and wanted the same life for her. But because Lexi's biggest superpower is being extremely observant, she quickly noticed how sexualized Cassie was already at a young age by older men, and how that primed her for a dependency on male validation and made her deeply insecure. Therefore, Lexi decided to slowly blend with the background and let her sister steal the spotlight while unconsciously taking on the huge responsibility of being Cassie's emotional support without having any room to express emotions of her own. On top of that, Lexi being an observer is very likely the result of her childhood trauma. In Cassie's backstory in season 1, we learned that after their parents divorced, the girls stayed with their mom and their dad used to visit and take them on fun trips during the weekends. Yet when we finally get to hear Lexi's side of the story, it turns out that during those fun trips, their dad used to drive them home while being intoxicated. And while Cassie pretended like nothing was wrong because she wanted her dad to be somewhat present in her life, Lexi, however, was very much aware of the danger she and her sister were in. Situations like this had a lasting impact on Lexi, made her hyper-vigilant and overly alert, as even years later she gets anxious every time the phone rings, as she expects something bad must have happened to her dad.
My whole life I've always had this feeling that at any moment something horrible was about to happen.
But the reason why Cassie and Lexi's storyline is so compelling to watch is because it challenges the viewer to witness two sisters with the same alcoholic mother, the same absent father, the same upbringing and the same childhood trauma, who turned out to be so dramatically different from one another. Why is Lexi so relatable? On a more superficial level, neither Lexi's fashion style nor her makeup looks aren't going viral on TikTok, yet still her character is the most relatable to many viewers of the show. But why? Well, in my opinion, we can all see some parts of ourselves in Lexi, as her struggles feel very real and humanly. Sooner or later, we all come to the conclusion that our society sold us this false promise of high school. It's supposed to be the best time of one's life. Enjoy it while it lasts, and all that crap. Whereas for the most of us, it was a very underwhelming and even painful experience. And probably most of us felt outshined by a sibling or left out by a bestie at some point of our lives. And if we add to this mix our current collective obsession with being the main character, well, that's a lot of expectations and feelings. Personally, I admire Lexi for her ability to cope with trauma by turning it into art. I can perfectly imagine that the process of writing down her own story was already therapeutic, let alone telling it to the bigger audience. So she's on a good path to heal. What can we learn from Lexi? Self-acceptance, for sure. Despite all the horrible things that have happened to her, she knows who she is. Lexi is not trying to hide her story from anyone. Quite the opposite actually, as she puts up a school play based on her life. Also, she likes herself the way she is. She's fine with being an observer. She's fine being her dorky self. She doesn't feel the need to cater herself towards the male gaze or to pressure herself into doing things she's not ready or comfortable to do. Lexi's character also sends a strong message that it is okay to be a late bloomer, and it is important to take as much time as we need and patiently wait for our time to shine. Predictions for Season 3. I predict that Season 3 of Euphoria will take place a couple years after the second season ended, and we will see all the characters trying to navigate through colleges and their adult lives. As for Lexi, it would be lovely, oh just so lovely, to see her finally flourish among college students, having her own circle of friends who share her interests and passions and love her just the way she is. And who knows, maybe even seeing her achieve her first significant success as a writer or film director. But that's not realistic. I feel this is how the third season might start, but sooner or later Lexi will have to at least temporarily abandon her dreams and once again take care of her older sister. Because let's face it, at this point, Cassie is 100% in some manic episode, as mania is described as a psychological condition that causes a person to experience unreasonable euphoria, very intense moods, hyperactivity, and delusions. But because her behavior was greatly overlooked, especially by her mom, I suspect that Cassie's mental state will only disintegrate. Therefore, I think that in Season 3, Lexi's character arc will be learning how to sometimes say no, how to set healthy boundaries, and putting herself first. But only time will tell. What do you think? Do you think that Lexi and Fez will be dating in Season 3? Do you have other theories and predictions? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!